Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You could find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS main slates on both DraftKings and FanDuel. We got a five-game slate tonight, locking at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to walk you through game by game, let you know which injury situations we need to keep an eye on, my favorite plays on both sites, and just really how to approach the slate in general. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. If you haven't already signed up to Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below as well. You get access to the model you see here that I'll be using to talk through this video. We also have a single lineup builder, a multi lineup builder, and there is a private Discord server full of DFS pros where you can get access to expert help to improve both your lineups and your overall DFS game. So without further ado, let's get into the slate here. We actually have a shorter Friday slate than usual. Usually we see 9 or 10 games on a Friday, so this five gamer should be relatively easy to kind of walk through. I have the model up here from Occupy Fantasy, and then we have a FanDuel window up, a DraftKings window up. I'll just kind of plug in my favorite plays as we talk through things, but let's get into it. First game on the slate, locking at 7 p.m. We have the Bucks at the Pacers. The Bucks are 8.5 point favorites on the road. Let's start on the Bucks side. We got Giannis listed as probable, which is good to see. Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday are no longer on the injury report. Serge Ibaka is out. Bobby Portis is out. Beauchamp is questionable as well, but not a major piece there, obviously. So with this team fully healthy, other than Portis, that is going to cut into Giannis's usage just a bit, but not all that much in terms of his upside. He still has a ridiculous ceiling. Still probably the best upside play on the slate, generally speaking. Um, I could see getting to Drew Holiday here. He does feel a little bit overpriced now that Middleton's back. We can take a quick look into the minutes for Chris Middleton, obviously working his way back from an injury. He was injured going into the season, came back, got hurt again. Now he's back for the second time. So it's no surprise that they're going to be extremely cautious with him moving forward. Only 15 and 14 minutes his last two games out, respectively. I'm guessing we see him kind of in that mid 20 range this time around. Not enough for me to want to roster him here, but it's also notable as Giannis should still see the massive usage he has been seeing. And like I said, even with this team fully healthy, Giannis is still going to be one of the best fantasy players in the NBA. So no surprise there. I don't mind Drew. I think he's fine here. It is an excellent matchup against the Pacers. The Pacers play very quickly. They have kind of a mediocre defense. We're looking at a 239.5 point game total here, so that kind of tells you everything you need to know. But yeah, as far as Milwaukee goes, really like Giannis on both sides. He's probably my favorite pay up on the slate. We're seeing him around 20% owned, which is reasonable. Drew looks fine, really not rushing to get to him. With Bobby Portis out, that should secure minutes for someone like Pat Connaughton and or Grayson Allen. I don't know that I trust either. Looking at ownership right now, we're seeing Connaughton up around 20% on both sites, which gives me some pause. He's just not a great fantasy producer. It is the type of game environment you would want to roster him in, but at the same time, I mean, he's just tough to trust. Doesn't always take shots, and when he does, they're not always falling. But for me, as things stand, Giannis is one of my favorite payups on the slate. He has that Q tag over on DK, but he is probable according to the Bucks injury report at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. So should be fully good to go here. Really like Giannis. He's the priority. And then I like Drew. I think Lopez looks fine as well. So just plenty to like here all around for Milwaukee, but it's really mostly just Giannis that I'm getting to aggressively. Over on the Pacers side of the ball, pulling up the injury report. Tyrese Halliburton's still out. Andrew Nemhard is questionable. Aaron Naismith is questionable. And then Miles Turner is questionable as well. Turner sustained an ankle injury with 1 minute left in the game last time out. If he's out tonight, I think we're going to have to look at someone like Isaiah Jackson and or Jalen Smith. Jackson's been the better fantasy producer. We have seen Smith start alongside Turner at times, but for me, I'm hoping we see Jackson start at center. If Jackson does start at center in place of Miles Turner, we can expect similar production to what we were seeing here. I'm just zooming in right now. January 13th and 14th, with him starting at center, 40 fantasy points, 35 fantasy points respectively on FanDuel. So just an excellent, excellent play. Um, love Jackson here, assuming he starts at center for Turner, but at the same time, we really can't pencil him in yet until we get news that Turner's going to be out. I mean, the good news is this is the first game on the slate, so we should know that going in. Um, but yeah, I mean, until we have that news, Turner's fine. I think he's in play, but I'm kind of hoping he's out, so maybe we can get to some Isaiah Jackson and even Jalen Smith as well. I mean, we have seen Smith have big games with Turner out in the past. He's just not as consistent as Jackson. Hasn't really flashed the same ceiling. So if Turner's out, I'm hoping it's Jackson who gets the nod. It could be Jalen Smith though, so just keep an eye on that situation. In the backcourt with Halliburton out, obviously we could continue to roster T.J. McConnell. I think he's fine on both sides. He's kind of priced up to where he should be now. So kind of proceed with some caution. He is still drawing ridiculous ownership. I like him better over on ZK at 6,500, but you're seeing him as one of the highest owned plays on the entire slate for a reason on both sites. So I'm going to consider McConnell kind of a core play for the time being. But maybe you can get off him as more guard value opens up throughout the day, just at the very, very high ownership percentages here. But for me, it's just the type of chalk I just don't really want to get away from yet. But yeah, if we get better guard plays throughout the day, maybe you could come off him, especially on FanDuel where he's north of 7K. Buddy Hield continues to go a bit overlooked with Halliburton out. He's seeing very high usage. I like him a lot, especially on ZK at 6,100. That just feels too cheap. Uh, I mean, we're really building a core around this first game. You're going to need it to stay close. It is in Indiana. The Bucks are 8-point favorites, but I do think it's going to be competitive. And with that near 40-point total here, there's just plenty to like. If we see Chris Duarte slide in the starting lineup again, he's been excellent. Um, Crushed value the last few times he was in the starting lineup, and I think we could see that if Nemhard and or Aaron Naismith are ruled out. So another situation we have to keep an eye on, but that shouldn't be an issue because this is the first game on the slate. So a lot to like here. Certainly waiting on some news, but let's move into the next game now. We have the Memphis Grizzlies at the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Grizzlies are 3-point favorites on the road, 238.5 point total here. So let's see. Let's start with Memphis. Taking a look over at the injury report, Steven Adams is still out. John Conchar is out. Danny Green is out. And Desmond Bain is questionable. So we have to keep an eye on the center situation here. Personally, I think we see Brandon Clark get the nod again as the starting center. We have seen Tillman on occasion get the nod at starting center, but Clark is more likely to get that opportunity. If he is the starting center, I do consider Clark to be a core play. Again, Steven Adams is out of the lineup. Clark has produced really well for fantasy in his absence, and I think he'll continue to do so here against Minnesota. Um, Jaren Jackson looks fine. Obviously, he gets into foul trouble, but he has a very high ceiling. John Moran, obviously, a really good play. If Bain's out, both of those guys are going to look a lot better than they do already. And they already look pretty damn good. So, a lot to like here for Memphis against Minnesota. Another game with a very high total. Dylan Brooks, super scoring dependent, kind of your boom bust tournament play if you want to get to him. I could totally understand it. But with Conchar out as well, I think maybe Sante Aldama could be in the mix a bit more than usual. Wouldn't be shocked if he hit value here, especially on DK at just 3,300. Not someone you can trust in cash games or like small field single entry, but in large field tournaments, I can see getting to him. And then I will just mention Xavier Tillman again. He's going to be the backup center here in all likelihood, but if you see him slide in that starting lineup, he would be the priority for me over Brooks. What we've seen over these past few games with Adams out is whoever starts at center is the guy you want for fantasy production. So if you have Clark penciled in, it's pretty easy to pivot down to Tillman if you need to, or if they do kind of switch up that lineup on us. But as things stand, I do consider Clark to be kind of a core play. Morant looks great. Jackson looks good, but if Bain's out, I'd like them even more. So keep an eye on that situation. Over on the Minnesota side of things, Rudy Gobert is listed as questionable. This is interesting. I think he'll play, but obviously we have to keep an eye on that. Torian Prince is out. Jordan McLaughlin's out. Obviously, Karl Anthony Towns is still out as well. If Gobert's out, Naz Reid becomes a priority everywhere. He's been really solid in the absence of Gobert this season. He has gotten into foul trouble a couple times his last few games out with Gobert out. So maybe people aren't as anxious to get to him as a value center. But for me, I do think he's one of the better value plays on the slate if Gobert is out. I'm penciling him in right now. But that's kind of preemptive. Like, I don't want to make too many assumptions. If Gobert's in, you really don't want to get to Naz Reid. So proceed with some caution there. Um, Anthony Edward looks good. D'Angelo Russell, certainly cheaper, not as high of a ceiling, but he looks solid here as well. And then I do really like Kyle Anderson on both sites. With Torian Prince out of the lineup, he should be starting at the wing. Obviously, small forward's one of the tougher positions to fill, especially on one of these kind of mid to lower size slates. So I do like Kyle Anderson. Before Naz Reid, maybe I'll just pencil Anderson in for now. And then again, just really want to emphasize if Gobert's out, you're going to want to get to Naz Reid. All the starters look good here. I mean, if Gobert's in, he's certainly solid. He's drawing massive ownership over on DK at 6,400. But it is a great matchup. I mean, with Steven Adams out, he's going to be facing Brandon Clark and or Xavier Tillman. So it's a matchup he should be able to take advantage of. At the same time, Rudy Gobert has been super inconsistent this season, so he's going to be tough to trust if he's in. But yeah, he's in play. And then Jaden McDaniels looks good with Torian Prince out as well. I do trust Anderson more, but I could see getting to McDaniels and Anderson even in the same lineup if you're really desperate for kind of that mid-range value. But I do imagine we see more open up throughout the day. So as things stand, Brandon Clark's certainly a core play for the Memphis Grizzlies in this game. I like Minnesota, but if Gobert's out, Naz Reid would become a core play for me here as well. Moving into the 8 o'clock window now, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers at the OKC Thunder. The Thunder are 1-point favorites at home. A little bit surprising. 222.5 point game total here. I mean, the Thunder have been pretty good this season, so I guess I shouldn't be too shocked. I'll start on Cleveland first. They're one of the only teams on the slate that has not yet released their injury report. This is a back-to-back for them. Donovan Mitchell dealing with that groin injury. He rested yesterday. He's a true questionable today. I mean, if he's in, he looks good. If he's out, then once again we could go back to Karis LeVert, Darius Garland. It would be a boost for Evan Mobley and Jared Allen as well. So whenever you're getting the highest usage player on a team ruled out, obviously there's going to be a trickle down effect. If Mitchell's in, I think he's fine. You can still get to some Garland. I wouldn't use LeVert with Mitchell in because he's not going to start. But Mobley and Allen would look solid in the front court regardless here. So keep an eye on that Mitchell news. If he's out, Garland and LeVert are going to be priorities for me. If he's in, I think he's good, sub 9K on both sites. But there really wouldn't be anything I'm forcing from Cleveland except maybe Mobley. He's just been really good this week, and his price hasn't come up as quickly as maybe it should. So I like the front court regardless, but Garland and LeVert are priorities if Mitchell is out, and only if Mitchell is out. So keep an eye on that piece. On the OKC side of things, still no Robinson Earl, still no Poku. Luguentz Dort's out as well here. Not sure I'm pronouncing his first name right. Please forgive me, Lou. But yeah, I really like SGA here. Really solid matchup for him, especially on ZK where he's sub 10K. Josh Giddey sub 8K on both sides. Scoring dependent guard. Plenty of upside though, so there's plenty of reason to like him here. Keep an eye on the starting lineup with Dort out. It could be Kenrich Williams that gets the nod. It could be Darius Baisley. Could be more minutes and usage for someone like Jalen Williams with an Len, not the I. That's the bigger guy, Jalen with a Y. But yeah, not to be confused with one another. Jalen Williams, Jelen, is the guy you'd want to get to. But at the same time, he's really not a priority. I do like Kenrich Williams a lot. If he starts, keep an eye on that. Isaiah Joe had a great game last time out. Saw increased minutes and usage with Dort out of the lineup. It's kind of a strange situation because he's a point guard, and obviously SGA and Giddey are healthy, so you wouldn't normally think he's going to get that run. But if Joe's going to see extra minutes and usage, I could see going to him as a value piece. But as things stand, it's really tough for me to prioritize anything here. It's just a really ugly matchup with Cleveland. This game has a 222.5 point total, but that's 20 points lower than the other games we've discussed so far. So not a spot I'm rushing to get to. I like SGA. I like Giddey. If Kenrich starts, he's going to be appealing. Maybe we see Wiggins get that start on the wing. But there is going to be some value here with Lou Dort out. It's just tough to know who it's going to be that emerges. And at the same time, I mean, even when Dort's in, he doesn't have a very high usage rate. So I don't know that there's anything here we're forcing. And just a recap on Cleveland, keep an eye on Donovan Mitchell. If he's out, we're going to have to get to Garland and LeVert aggressively. Moving into the next game on the slate now, we have the Orlando Magic at the Miami Heat. The Heat are 8-point favorites at home. Taking a look at the Miami Heat injury report, they're back to listing a ton of guys. We got Jovic out, Caleb Martin probable, Duncan Robinson out, Max Strus probable. So, I mean, their top guys are all healthy, it seems. I mean, Butler could be a late scratch. He often just doesn't play for no reason. I think he's healthy, though. If Butler, Bam, Hero, Lowry are all in, none of them are really priorities for me. Butler does feel a little bit too cheap on DK at 7,600. I do like him over there. But if any of these guys are out, they're all going to become much more appealing than they are currently. But as things stand, Miami's just one of these teams that when they're healthy, it's tough to know who you really want to pluck. And just looking at the total here, 219, that's even lower than the Cleveland and OKC game. So just not the best game environment. Um, could be competitive. I mean, Orlando has been playing good basketball, but if Miami's healthy, they're just not something I'm ever really trying to prioritize, except maybe Butler on DK. That price is just begging us to play him at 7,600. Over on the Orlando side of things, another team pretty healthy, probably the healthiest they've been all season. Jonathan Isaac's back. They're resting him tonight. I think it's the front end of a back-to-back. Don't quote me on that, but regardless, I mean Banchero, Carter, Fultz, Wagner, Anthony, Bull, Harris. They're all healthy, so it's really tough to just prioritize anything here. I mean, I do like Banchero, 7K flat on DK, 7,500 on FanDuel. He looks good. I mean, you get power forward eligibility for Carter Jr. on FanDuel at 6,900. I could see getting a little bit of him here as well. But again, this game is just a sub 220 point total, which is a rarity in the NBA nowadays. Two healthy teams. There's just really no major priorities here. So I like Orlando, but not enough to really consider anyone a core play. And then Miami, if they're healthy, there's just nothing there for me. So probably my least favorite game on the slate, but no surprises there. Um, then we have a break. There's the 8 o'clock games, and then we have this 10 o'clock window where there is only one late night hammer game here. So we have the Golden State Warriors at the Toronto Raptors, 235 point game total. Warriors are 5.5 point favorites at home. Let's start at the Golden State side of things. Iguodala is out. Andrew Wiggins is questionable. So if Wiggins is out, then DiVincenzo becomes somewhat interesting as kind of a mid-range value play. It would also provide upside for Poole, Thompson, and Green, who see their fantasy point per minute rate get a little bit of a boost. I do like Steph Curry here. Tough to prioritize him over some of the other payups we've discussed, but he certainly has a high ceiling. But this is another team; they're healthy, but at the same time, it's tough to not want a piece of this late game. I will say there is no like mathematical reason to keep a part of the late game. Like if you can build a lineup with the early games and you feel good about it, don't feel obligated to force something in here late. But at the same time, I do think Dre looks fine. Wiggins, if he's in, looks good. Curry, Poole, Thompson, they're all fine plays. Just no priorities for me on the Golden State side. Over on Toronto, Otto Porter's out and Blanton's questionable, so no major injury news here either. I really like Pascal Siakam, sub 10K on both sides. He's seen his price come down a bit. Van Fleet's price is up a bit. He looks good on both sides. Better on DK at just 8K flat. But Scotty Barnes, Garen Trent, OG Anunoby, this is just another team. They're fully healthy and they're all kind of priced where they should be. I don't know that I can rush to anything here. Toronto's been playing a lot better lately, I will say that. And I think a big reason for it is that Precious Achua has been getting those minutes at center. Trying to take a look at him right now. Just see if we could trust him as kind of value. I mean, 5,500 isn't a great price. I don't mind him though. Only 4,900 over on DK, I believe, or 4,200. Wow. So yeah, really, really like Precious Achua over on DraftKings. I think he's going to be kind of a priority for me over there. But yeah, as things stand, I like Siakam, Van Fleet, Barnes, OG, Trent. They're all good plays. None of them are great though. But yeah, it is a late game. You might want a piece of this just so you have some rooting interest. But again, mathematically, there's no reason to force in any piece from that late game. If we do get some injury news and things open up, that could certainly change though. So as things stand, just taking a quick look, I penciled in McConnell, Anderson, Giannis, Clark on FanDuel. Healed, I added on DK. He looks great on FanDuel as well. Anderson on both sites. And then Precious Achua over on DK is really solid play. Sorting by OF index, which is available in this model you see here, we can kind of sort by just who's the best play on the slate. And this is mostly weight on their overall upside. We're seeing Giannis at the top, no surprise there. SGA looks good. Morant, Curry, Siakam, Edwards, Butler, Turner. Really no surprises. I mean, if Mitchell's out, I imagine Garland would climb up a little bit. We have to keep an eye on that Miles Turner news. There's a chance he ends up ruled out, in which case we could see Isaiah Jackson and or Jalen Smith become extremely relevant. So plenty of good pay-ups. I think outside of Giannis, though, there's nothing I'm really forcing. And I will say this, I mean, unless we get more value, you might be better off kind of going balanced. But for me right now, I would try to build around Giannis. I do think we have just enough value to make it work. Just taking a quick look at ownership, D'Angelo Russell's getting a lot of ownership over on FanDuel. Just a little bit too cheap at 7K flat. TJ McConnell looks good. Brandon Clark, who we've obviously already talked about. Gobert, if he's in, really strong play, better on DK. But Naz Reid would look excellent if Gobert ends up ruled out. He is questionable. Gobert, that is. Maybe you could get to Grayson Allen as a value play with Portis out. Very inconsistent, though. Same as Pat Connaughton. Then over on DK, we're looking at similar ownerships. I mean, Jared Allen at 6K flat. I didn't talk about him much when we discussed the Cleveland game, but he looks excellent over there. Buddy Hield, who we talked about. Naismith's questionable. I mean, if some of these guys are out, we could see Chris Duarte get a start again. He'd be an excellent value play here for me as well. So once again, my name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, help us get more free content like this out to you. And if you're not already a member, check the links in the description below and become one today. You get access to our team of pros, the model you see here, single and multi lineup builder. Just a great team all around, great group of guys and gals in that Discord helping you every night. So yeah, not much else to say here. Really nice, solid 5-game slate tonight. Keep an eye on that news. Happy Friday, everyone. Let's have some fun tonight and make some money. Good luck. Take care.